Hey there, how you doing? Charlie Winters here with selections for Friday, the 30th of December. Well, a very disappointing day yesterday. It started nothing more than okay, where we had two Irish place horses. Then it was like fingers crossed to the next one, which was the most interesting for me. The Harley de Rots, I think it was, fell at the first. So that was very disappointing. And then I was kind of, in the end, relying on the football. And well, I say unfortunately, the bet lost. But one more goal in one of the matches, we would have won. And it never felt, halfway through the day, it never felt like we could ever recover. But if there had been one more goal in I think it's Forest Green and Burton match, we would have returned £38, which would have been a profitable day. So I've gone for a very similar day, selection-wise. Well, obviously I hope they run better. But I've had an each-way Lucky 15, an each-way Paynton, and a bet on the football. Once again, if the over 2.5 goals bet comes up on the football, it cancels the day out. I think we'll win about 30p. So, but we don't want to rely on the football. We want to have a good day. Well, a channel that I like to look at is Flat Cap Callum. I once included his selections, and I always find it interesting in selections because sometimes the horses that I find extremely interesting and very well handicapped, sometimes we can pick the same, like the Two Amigos. That one, that if I'm being honest, apart from 2 out when it was pressed, it never really looked like being under threat. Well, another one is which you mentioned, which I chose last night, was Mr. Harp, and that's the first selection. So the first bet is a 10 pence each way, Lucky 15, comes to £3. But before you put that bet on, include the selections, which I'm going to go through now. But I've also had them in each way doubles and an accumulator. So let's get into it. So I've taken all the prices because I don't think I'm happy with the prices, should I say. So let's get into it. So Mr. Harp at 11 to 1 in the 12.30 at Haydock, paying 4 places instead of 3. It's currently soft ground. Haydock is atrocious for getting, it's really difficult to get home on soft ground or even heavy ground. Well, this horse was described on soft ground. Apparently the ground when it ran a bad race. It ran a bad race on soft ground. But I think the trainer described it, or the jockey described it as he thought they were good to soft patches and he wasn't suited by it. And then in brackets it says the horse wants even slower ground. So this is a horse where will soft ground be slow enough for it? And I think yes. At Haydock especially yes. And I think it's been tuned up ideally for this race. So I really like the look of Mr. Harp. The second selection is Sonny Moser at 9 to 1 in the 1.30 at Haydock. This horse has ran okay over hurdles. The good thing about it is it hasn't actually won a race, so it doesn't carry a penalty. The first two, like the fancied horses in a race, both carry penalties. One of the horses, which I can't remember now, tends to run freely. I think it's the favourite. The last thing you want is a horse running freely on, let's call it bottomless ground, because I think soft ground is hard work at Haydock. The last thing you want is a horse running freely on very, very slow ground with a penalty. So it makes them vulnerable. And I think that's Sonny Moser, who is bred to one probably a bit further, but also it wants this soft ground and a relatively local course for the trainer. I can't think. Evan Williams. I think this horse could run a decent race, sneak a place. But if the wheels come off with those two in front, definitely got a chance of winning, in my opinion. Third selection is Aramax at 25 to 1 in the 2.30 at Haydock, paying 4 places instead of 3. This horse has run 2 races this year, over 2.5 miles on soft ground at Carlisle, where I just think it was basically, probably, I'm guessing, as fat as a pig. Yeah, they gave it a race, and then next time it ran a much better race over a more inconvenient trip of 2 miles. I think this is more up its street. 25 to 1 is a crazy price. John Joe Neal has actually taken the ride. If somebody tells me that if it's going to run its race, I think it's got a cracking chance of a place. There's so many question marks because there are some horses that are running well, but I think they're handicapped up to the hill. So yeah, Aramax at 25 to 1, and the final selection in this bet is Encarde at 9 to 1 in the 3 o'clock at Haydock, paying 4 places instead of 3. It's only ran okay so far this season. Dr. Newland, and I think Charlie Hammond's on board, I'm not sure, but Dr. Newland anyway, this horse has ran or absolutely hacked up on this type of ground last year, beating a horse called Remastered, who at the moment is absolutely flying. Well, this race is nowhere near to that level. Don't get me wrong, this horse had its problems since, but I think it's very well handicapped, and I think it should relish today's conditions. So 4 horses I really like the look of. So as I said, also include them in 25p each way doubles, and then finally a 50p, well finally for this bet, a 50p each way accumulator. Right, let's get on to the other bet. So because of the prices, instead of having a Trixie, I've actually gone for an each way painting because well, it'll be an okay return if one of them wins. You guaranteed at minimum a fiver if one of them wins or just one of them wins. So 30p each way painting. First selection is Street Poet at 14 to 1 in the 4:30 at Wolverhampton, paying 4 places instead of 3. This is an apprentice race, and as you know, I'm a big fan of Billy Loughnane. I'm convinced that he could have a few winners, or he could get a decent price, treble or 4-4. Well, he has got 4 rides today, but one of them is 1 to 5, so you can't back that. He's got Street Poet, which is 14 to 1, and the other two, I think the 3 to 1 and 11 to 4, and I can't have those, but I can have Street Poet because personally I think he's a very good jockey, and he's also still claiming 3 in apprentice race as well. I think you could take the claim off him, and I think he could pretty much ride in a professional race without the claiming. I think he's a very decent rider. So that's the first selection. The second selection is Headshot at 12 to 1 in the 7 o'clock at Wolverhampton, paying 4 places instead of 3. I think this horse was very well handicapped. I think it's Tony Carroll's horse. Doesn't matter whose it is. But I do think the stable is just running into a bit of form. It's got a decent draw. It was drawn 10 last time. It's drawn 1 this time. So if it just races relatively prominently, I'm more than just behind the leaders. I'm more than happy with that. And I think it's a decent price at 12 to 1. A few of the fancied horses in that race are drawn wide, which actually helps our benefit. Or benefits, so sorry, not helps our benefit. Helps our benefit? We'll go with that. And the third selection is He's Our Star at 20 to 1 in the 7:30 at Wolverhampton, paying 4 places instead of 3. This horse is described as doesn't normally run over this shorter distance. Well, I've been looking at the distances it has been run over, and recently it's been running over about 1.2 miles on the turf. Well, it's not been running very well, so it doesn't matter the fact that it's been running further. It's generally, I think it's been bringing its handicap mark by running it over further because it doesn't like further. So the fact that it's been brought to what could be possibly its preferred trip, and it's now very well handicapped. So I think this is the other Carroll, but it doesn't matter anyway. I think Tony Carroll had a 40 to 1 winner yesterday, and I think because I was watching his horses, as you're aware, his horses are gradually running into form, and these trainers, in my opinion, they don't want these short price winners. How many times do you see big price winners on the all weather? And I think this one potentially could be a very well handicapped horse in a poor race that's been overlooked by many people, in my opinion. But I think it's got a cracking chance. So that's He's Our Star. The analysis hasn't been great, don't get me wrong. I haven't got the trainers particularly right, but I think the horses that are running into form, and they're extremely well handicapped. So that's 30p each way painting. And I've also had, to make it up to a rounder figure, I think it comes up to, just give me a second. Yeah, to make it up to a fiver, I've then had a 40p each way treble. And finally, right, let me just scroll down. I'll talk you through right, here we go. So what I've had another over 2.5 goals, over 3.5 goals, and over 4.5 goals trebles. All you need to know the matches. Then you need to go to the over 2.5 goals and put the 3 matches in. So as I said, this £4.50 treble, should it come up, pays for the day. I think £20 is total stake, and it may, as you can see, we'll win 23p if this one wins, where it pays for all your horse racing, the entire bet of the day. So let's get into it. So a £4.50 treble, over 2.5 goals treble, should I say. And the matches are Swansea versus Watford, Stevenage versus Crawley, and Liverpool versus Leicester. It's the same teams again. It's It's a £2.50 over 3.5 goals treble. Swansea versus Watford, Stevenage versus Crawley, and Liverpool versus Leicester. And finally, it's a £1 over 4.5 goals treble. Swansea versus Watford, Stevenage versus Crawley, and Liverpool versus Leicester. So those are the bets for Friday. I shall be doing a video tonight ready for Saturday. So the fingers crossed. Let's hopefully have a good day. I really like the look of the horses. Very interesting angles to all of them. So the very best of luck. If you can give me a like, that'd be great. Charlie Winters, over and out. Cheers, mate.